Welcome to Journey to Justice. I'm Eiko Kosasa, and today I interviewed Andre Perez, a cultural practitioner and political activist. We spoke at his learning farm called Hanekahau, where young people learn farming and engage in political discussions. In this interview, Andre recounts the incidents and people who have shaped his political consciousness. I began the interview by asking Andre where he was born and raised.
I was born in 1970. My mother, who was originally from Big Island, had gone to, the Bay Area. A lot of Hawaiians were moving out to the Bay Area during that time, and she met my father, who was in the military, and so I was born in the Bay Area, right outside of Oakland. And shortly afterwards, my mother moved back with my mother made my father move back to Hawaii, to the Big Island, to Hilo, and we lived in Hilo, and I started school, kindergarten. I think I went to Hilo Union School, and we lived there for a few years, and then we moved to Kauai, I think in 1977, to my grandmother's property. She owned a house in a place called Oma'o. Nice countryside right in the Koloa district, Mauka, uplands of Koloa. And so I pretty much grew up there, Kauai, Koloa School, elementary school, and Kauai High School and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my growing up years, yeah. Mostly on formative years were all on Kauai.
Out in the rural area.
Yeah, rural area. My grandmother owned a house in Oma'o, and so we grew up running in the mountains, riding horses, and swimming in the rivers, and fishing, and riding our bikes through the cane fields. Really on the tail end of the plantation era. My father worked in the plantation as a truck driver, and as the plantations were shutting down, I was already in high school. But that was an interesting experience too, seeing a little glimpse of plantation life.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of, despite some of the bad stuff associated with plantation life, there was also a sort of cohesiveness amongst the different ethnic groups. And in their little bubble, I could see that life was okay for some people in simple life, in the plantation life. And so I got the tail end of that, and ran all over the mountains, playing outdoors. No cable, no computers, Xbox back then, no MTV. We were outdoors kids. So yeah, Kauai.
Yeah. So how did you get political consciousness? Is it something that started then or later? Because now you're on Oahu.
Yeah. Well, I look at it, and there's overlapping layers of political consciousness and understanding of struggle. I think the beginnings of political consciousness probably started with my dad. He was a Mexican, a Chicano, growing up in Oakland, California, in the height of civil rights activism, Vietnam War resistance, and revolutionary ideology that came out of Oakland, California. So, my dad came from East Oakland, so he was, right there when the Black Panthers were born, and of course they had, a lot of my uncles were a part of the Chicano Revolutionary Party and sort of Latin American consciousness. And my dad was, not as active as my uncles, but I grew up with my uncles also because they all came to Hawaii. They followed my dad here, so they were pretty hardcore in the Chicano Revolutionary Party and a group called the Venceremos Brigade, where they had gone to Cuba. Some of my uncles had gone to Cuba to support Castro. So I kind of knew about these things. I knew about what it was like to be brown and different.
Yeah.
I knew a little bit about what it meant to be brown and oppressed. A little bit,
Yeah.
I had uncles talking about Che Guevara, talking about just the different struggles in inner city life and the disparity. A lot of my uncles attended and taught at different colleges, like Chabot College in the Bay Area, and places where there was a strong revolutionary kind of ideology. So I kind of understood that. But at the same time, I was growing up in Hawaii as a country kid, like I said, playing in the cane fields, riding our bikes everywhere. So I kind of grew up in sort of, at the same time, a surfer, kind of haole surfer world too. And, you know, growing up in the kind of haole dominated surfer world, you know, I always sensed a little bit of difference there too.
Right.
But, you know, my mother had a strong consciousness also about local culture and sort of disparity there. And she'd always talk about, you know, we got to look out for one another, local people, you know. If we don't take care of each other, who's going to take care of us? She always taught us that, about sharing and giving and sort of, you know, helping one another. And later in life, I think more of my consciousness came, I joined the military. I spent 8 years in the military, got stationed in places like Florida. I went to school in Mississippi.
Oh.
And so experienced some real racism there, or prejudice, you know, and started to, you know, in the military you see there's real racism in the U.S. military, a lot of prejudices, and a lot of ethnic, you know, presence, I guess you could say. So that was part of it, and then part of my consciousness came from being in the military and starting to see the militarization of Hawaii. The bombing of Kaho'olawe was a big one for me. I was in the military in 1993, the 100-year anniversary, the overthrow, and I saw the contradiction. I started to see. I wanted to go to Kaho'olawe when I was in the military. They had this when I was in the military. They used to send soldiers to go clean up the bombing ranges, and nobody wanted to do it because it was hard work. Nobody wanted to get that military detail.
Yeah.
But I volunteered. I want to go, you know, because I remember, you know, reading about Kaho'olawe in high school in Hawaiian class. Yeah. And because I really wanted to go, the commander didn't let me go. But the reality was they couldn't really find people who wanted to go.
So obviously you were based here in
I
the
got
military.
stationed here after Florida, Korea. Korea was part of it too. I started to see that, hey, the military presence. My first week in Korea, I was at Osan Air Base. It was like I think my first or second day off base. I didn't know nobody. I just walked off the base into the town and was looking at the shops and, you know, window shopping. And all of a sudden I found myself in a situation where there was nobody around. And these sirens started going off. And all of a sudden I didn't see any American military personnel. And all of a sudden all these South Korean soldiers started driving up in trucks, positioning themselves on every corner in riot gear with shields and guns and helmets and, you know, bulletproof vests. And I kind of got nervous. What the hell is going on? And one of them told me, you better get back on base. So I made it back to the base, and as I got to the front gate of Osan Air Base, they had like this artillery half-track, you know, gun vehicle with a big machine gun at the front gate facing outwards. And as I got on base, they told me, yeah, the students are rioting. They're threatening to storm the base. And I was like, what is this about? And I realized, you know, that's my first kind of confrontation with the truth, the reality that a lot of Koreans didn't want a military presence in South Korea.
American military
An
presence.
American military presence. Sorry, yeah, they didn't want that. And I started to think about that.
Yeah.
Kind of ponder why. So that was an experience, you know, getting stationed back here in Hawaii. You know, the last half of my time in was starting to really become, you know, when you go away, you miss everything that you're familiar with. Missing Hawaiian food, Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian music. So every person who joins the U.S. military, if you're from Hawaii, you're gonna miss the food. You're gonna miss the simple things like Zippy's chili, you know, Hawaiian music. So already coming back now, I had a much deeper appreciation for Hawaiian things and Hawaiian culture. And you know, I was here, stationed here at Hickam, and already not conforming, you know, typical, you know, journey of non-conforming. I got a DUI right when I got back, and I got in a lot of trouble actually.
Yeah.
So I got out of the military in trouble.
Yeah.
I was facing court martials and a bunch of Article 15s for alcohol and fighting and just crazy stuff. But the military wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I was here back home with my people, with my friends and family. And so I was fortunate and smart enough to get out with, under honorable conditions. And I got out in 1996, June 19th. And that was the beginning of another layer of consciousness.
Okay.
I got out with nothing, no job, no savings, no resources. Where am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? I drove off Hickam with $5 in my pocket. And I remember I went to McDonald's and bought a Big Mac. And I said, the only place that I can think of to go to survive is Waiawa. So I had a car, a truck. So I loaded up, growing up on Kauai, my first instinct was, okay, I got my camping gear, my diving gear, my fishing gear, boom, went to Waiawa and hung out with brothers that I met there on the beach, camping, fishing, diving, and, basically struggling. And that's where I really started to see what was going on the coast, the Waianae coast, on the streets. Poor people, houseless, homeless, drugs, violence. And I started to see, there's something going on. There's something wrong with this picture. Being on the streets of Waianae in the summer of '96, man, was a big transformative time for me. I basically survived by selling everything that I had, anything of value, from cameras to video camera to, I was hitting the cam drive-in swap meet. I was hitting the pawn shops, just selling stuff for gas money. And finally I hit rock bottom and finally lowered my pride and went in and got food stamps, because I had heard that if you go in and get food stamps, back then was the paper food stamps, and you tell them you're homeless, they'll issue the food stamps right there the same day. So that's what I did. I had no address. And I got $105 in food stamps or something. Went down the beach, bought some food, hanging out with the brothers, and by the very next morning, all my food stamps were stolen. And that was a powerful moment for me. When you hit rock bottom on the streets, in struggle, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Everyone's out for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's sad where Hawaiians start stealing from each other, taking, asserting power over one another. And it was a real powerful moment for me. I was down and out. I was really sad and heartbroken because I had nothing. And I was, you get hungry.
Yeah.
And some friends took me in, and I lived with some Hawaiian brothers, families. And, I ended up getting a girlfriend from Nanakuli, and we struggled and got a little apartment. And I knew, though, that, being on welfare in Waianae can be a dead-end road, and I knew I had to get out of that. So, the Kaho'olawe cleanup was starting, and I really wanted to go there. And I made a commitment to myself, non-negotiable. There was these 4 positions they advertised for cultural monitors, cleanup monitors, working for the KIRC, the Kaho'olawe Island Reserve Commission. Great. 4 jobs. I had no degree, no education. I never even dreamed of going to college. In fact, when I joined the military, I turned down the GI Bill. Because I said, I'm not going to ever need that. Yeah. So I turned it down. I waived it. Anyways, 1997, I applied for the job, and I did everything that I could. I researched Kaho'olawe. I wrote a very strategic resume. A good friend of mine taught me how to answer the mail. Yeah, you answer every question, all their criteria, all their requirements. You meet everything with something relevant. And so I wrote a good resume, applied. To make a long story short, the process took almost a year. Wow. I read all their documents and paperwork, so when I went in for the interview, I knew their mission statement, their vision. I read the Kaho'olawe use plan, the Kaho'olawe restoration plan.
God.
So I was, talking their language, quoting their stuff. I knew how they dressed.
Right.
I went and spied on the office, looked through the window, see, what do they wear? How do they dress? I watched videos on the Kaho'olawe conveyance hearings. So I saw the players, I knew who was who. I knew how their behavioral stuff was. Anyways, I got the job.
Wow.
So I went out to, and there was from what I understand, there was 135 applicants for these 4 positions.
Wow.
I got one.
Wow.
And I don't know, it's crazy because mostly everyone had college degrees.
Yeah.
And I had no connection. I didn't know nobody involved with Kaho'olawe. I just wanted it really bad. And it got me out of Makaha. It got me to Maui. And it immersed me into sort of the cultural activism realm. The Kaho'olawe, the Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana, cultural resistance in terms of ceremony, the Makahiki ceremony.
Right.
And I met guys like Uncle Maka, and I met people like, Daviana, Emmett Aluli.
Yeah.
And I started to, get immersed in that. And for me, I'm very proud to have gone down that road through Kaho'olawe, through the PKO, because I believe that born out of the Kaho'olawe struggle and cultural reawakening, etc., people kind of go 2 ways, yeah? You look at guys like Skippy Ioane, Soli Nihil, Terry Keko'olani, Walter Ritty. You either, to me, you get stuck on the island, or you start to see that there's something bigger, something deeper. And I started to see, become more politicized. And one of the key guys for me was Kalekoa Ka'eo, who just blew me away. Became my mentor, my teacher.
Because he was working.
He was working with me. He
Yeah,
eventually
right,
came to
okay.
work with me on the Kaho'olawe Commission. In the beginning, it was real cultural. I had teachers like Hokulani Holt Padilla and Kale Nuhiva,
yeah.
Formerly Kale Suha, who were teaching us spiritual and cultural understandings. And we started doing workshops and training with the Kanaka Ole Foundation, Antipua, and really learning about culture and
But Kalekoa,
spiritual.
yeah.
But then Kalekoa came in. Kalekoa Ka'eo came in and just, for me, turned everything on its head by bringing forth this very political element and helping me understand that in culture there is politics. In politics, there's culture. They complement each other. They play off of each other. There's reciprocal interaction between culture and politics. And he started to challenge me. One of the key things, a real awakening moment, was Kalekoa always has these pictures and quotes pasted all over his office wall. And there's this black guy with dreadlocks crucified to a cross. And I asked him, who is that? Is that Peter Tosh? No. He's like, no, look good. And Bob Marley. And then I was like, Mumia Abu Jamal. He's like, oh, come on, look closer. Come on, look good. Who? You tell me who's that. I was like, I don't know. Finally, I give up. He goes, come on, Andre. You're colonized. How's about Jesus? What? You thought he was white? And we were like, well, whoa. And I realized that, through this subliminal conditioning, social, the way we're trained to view things, that I actually did, in my mind's eye, perceive Jesus as white. In all the European depictions and pictures and portrayals, he is white.
Right.
And that was like, whoa, I started to rethink, and so these kinds of things, I started to develop a critical consciousness where I started to see contradiction, even in the leadership that I was associated with, even in the decision-making process, which was not really there, and I started to look at people like Kalekoa and Soli Nihil. I started to reflect on my father's, my experience with my dad and my uncles, and sort of revolutionary ideology, understanding power and understanding oligarchy, and that even within our own struggle, there's compradors. There's people who make concessions and sort of try to portray them as progress. And I started meeting people like Steve Tayama, very brilliant guy who started teaching me about principles and what it meant to have principles, but more importantly, to adhere to them. Because people don't get principles don't get compromised. People get co-opted or compromised. And I started to really become, idealistic, but more so having principles and seeing things with to me, a more clear, deconstructive eye.
Yeah.
You know, where we start to deconstruct sort of these things that we see as so-called truth, and surface level stuff, looking deeper, digging. And then Kalekoa and Steve turned me on to, of course, all the Bibles, yeah, Fanon, Stephen Biko, started to read Che Guevara, Malcolm X, George Helm, but more revolutionary ideology, dabbling in Marx theory, understanding, class struggle.
Yeah.
And I started to read, Paulo Freire,
Yeah.
education banking,
Yeah.
and, teaching myself.
Yeah.
And I started, right, well, I didn't go to college, but maybe college was now going through me at this period of my life. And so eventually I left the Kaho'olawe thing. It was just, as one person said, Andre outgrew Kaho'olawe, and maybe I did. I still have fond memories and a lot of friends there, and a lot of close contacts, and a lot of appreciation for Kaho'olawe. But in my heart and my soul, I was striving for something more meaningful, something more transformative and more powerful. Yeah. Going to Makahiki every year on Kaho'olawe was cool, man, but I started to realize we gotta do this in our backyards, in our ahupoa, in our homes. Cannot live in a bubble.
Yeah.
And so I eventually left in 2005, moved back to Oahu, and Akaka bill was like at its mid-stride, trying to pass the bill in 2005. I remember I walked into Kalekoa's office one day. What's this Akaka bill thing? He started to explain it to me in a way, it's very powerful and simple and nurturing. Not trying to make me feel stupid, but he kind of empowered me, and I said, wow, we got to do something about this. And so I moved back here, and I had met this guy on Kaho'olawe, and they wanted to organize. And I really, have to acknowledge that it was really a phone call from this guy, Kale Gumapak, who said, Andre, can you organize a meeting? Skippy and Palikapu Deadman want to fly up to Oahu, and we want to organize some resistance, some action against the Akaka bill. We got to do something. And it really started with, I think, sort of these iconic figures.
Yeah.
Skippy Iowani, Palikapu Deadman.
Yeah.
So I said, sure, I'll organize the meeting. So I organized this meeting at Hawaiian Studies. And with help, I called upon Terry and Ikaika Hussey, and hey, let's do this. And it just blew up into this really kind of unusual meeting, because I think it was the relationships that Skippy and Palikapu, and then Bumpy got involved, and now people started to see, hey, we're getting some key players.
Yeah.
Let's go check it out. I remember Mililani, Trask, got on board, and Kekuni, and it became this for me a very important meeting that happened in the summer of 2005. And we talked about Akaka bill. What are we going to do about this, man? Because this thing is being rammed down our throat. It's being pushed. There's been no self-determination process, no public hearings, no free prior informed consent. It's just the organization CNHA with OHA with the money pushing it in DC as if it's something that the masses of Hawaiians wanted, when the reality was people didn't even know what it meant. People didn't even understand it, and many of us still don't. Many Hawaiians still don't. As one of my experiences when I was doing organizing against the Akaka bill out in Waiawa, talking to the homeless, one Hawaiian man, I asked him, do you know what the Akaka bill is, uncle? He said, brother, I live on the beach. I'm worried about how I'm going to get my diabetes medicine next week. I started to realize, wow, you got people surviving, and they don't have time to think about the Akaka bill. But meanwhile, we got the Hawaiian institutions ramrodding this thing as if it's a pono thing for us,
You mean like OHA?
OHA,
like
CNHA,
Yeah.
you had the the state of Hawaii for that matter. A lot of the civic clubs were behind it,
Yeah.
Sort of these, different groups of people who are sort of disconnected from street people, the everyday Hawaiians who are struggling, poor people. Like I said, when my experience in Waiawa, the brother told me that, was very powerful. People who are struggling financially, economically, socially, dysfunctional families, incarceration, they are not thinking about the Akaka bill.
Right.
They're thinking about making next month's rent,
Right.
about medical insurance,
Right.
you know.
So,
So these things,
right.
really pushed me out into the community where I kind of started getting very active, maybe even aggressive, about trying to make a difference. To me, making a difference is starting to develop a critical consciousness. As
Right.
Malcolm X said, the hardest thing to do is get people to wake up. But when they
Yeah.
wake up, then you get action. When you get action,
Right.
then you get change.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
what I'm starting to see now is, a lot of our people are stuck in this paradigm allegiance of, ku'e, go down, hold the upside down flag, hold the sign, hold the, protest on the sidewalk, and that's good stuff. For me personally, I started to see beyond that. For me, I had to start, as Brother Skippy would say, we could shake the tree. We're confronting the power. We're shaking the tree. But at one point, I started to realize we gotta start planting trees. We gotta start building. We gotta start, exercising, as Kalekua taught me. We recognize, we analyze, we organize, and then we exercise. And that's asserting ourselves in different ways. For me, I changed when I started to develop a different ideas about what self-determination, what reclaiming control of our lives means. And we got to start thinking long-term and not being reactionary. We got to start building place like our farm here, the idea we had. And this is where my shift is starting to occur. Working with the Opio, the youth. Well, we're working with high school and college kids here, but developing a critical consciousness. Eventually, their critical consciousness will develop to the point where they can see contradiction for themselves, and they'll be able to speak up and to assert, their rights for themselves. And I think that will, over time, develop the critical mass that we're so desperate for. We cannot get critical mass. We can get 17,000 Hawaiians to march and protest for Kamehameha schools, letting one haole kid in the school, which doesn't change anything. It's still a Hawaiian school.
Yeah.
They should have the confidence in that. We'll mobilize 17,000 Hawaiians, but things like the Akaka bill, which is attempting to define our very identity and how we're viewed how we're seen in the framework of politics and culture and power. We'll never mobilize. We have never been able to mobilize 17,000 people. There's an attack on our very political identity and status. We're going to be Native Americans, indigenous to the United States, tribal, tribal status. And we can't mobilize even 1,700 people. So what I see is the longer term is developing the critical consciousness, bringing forth this sense of lahui-ness, learning our true history. But it's a long term, it takes work. As Kalekoa, I always go back to him. Before the land can be returned to Hawaiians must return to the land. In some cases literally, in some cases more figuratively in our values. We gotta start getting away from fear, dependency. A lot of Hawaiians think, how are we going to survive? If the U.S. was to go away, we have this sort of feelings of incapableness. Like we can't govern ourselves. We can't manage economics. We were a nation. We were a sovereign, legitimate nation, just like any other country prior to 1893. We had, our own kingdom, governance, constitution, very progressive constitution. We had electricity, water, telephones, running water, flushing toilets, in some cases before America. Yet, we've been sort of trained to be afraid of our independence and our ability to govern ourselves and to manage our country. And I think that there are many great Hawaiians out there, from bankers to, administrators to, we got to start having faith in ourselves. The early American forefathers had faith in themselves when they broke off from England. If they had that same fear, there would be no America. We got to start, developing that confidence and embracing our intelligence and capability.
Right. So with working on the land here, on the Aina, you're gonna, not only will they learn things physical, but you're gonna teach political.
Right. So we try. Exactly. So back to that pairing of culture and politics. So we're trying to teach values through, planting, replanting, teaching, environmental consciousness. But with that comes a political. Look where we are. We're on the shores of Pu'uloa, Pearl Harbor, militarization right here. This is in essence the belly of the beast. Very critical element to the overthrow was Pearl Harbor military strategic location. So we point that out. We teach that. We need to know our history. We need to understand that there was an overthrow. There was no treaty of annexation. We know we're through working the Aina, planting, harvesting. We're also having discussions, down to earth discussions, where we start to challenge perhaps status quo perceptions, misperceptions, false history. So little by little, I think that we're raising consciousness in a more natural, organic way versus PowerPoint slideshow. Right? This is the PowerPoint right here on the Aina.
This is fundamental.
And at the core of any political struggle, if you study history, it's always been about land. So, where can we Hawaiians have land to grow food, harvest, and learn about our culture, spirituality, religion? That there's other gods out there for us that can give us our spiritual fulfillment. Stuff like that. And it's struggle. We struggle against our own people sometimes. But, we ho'omau, we continue. We got to. What else is there? And we have hope. And faith that, as my friend said, good people always come to the good side. And for me, I have to believe that. So that's what we're doing. We demonstrate through action, demonstrate through initiative. So we do our own makahiki now. We go around the whole island.
That's right. You guys did that last year.
That's right. Yeah. We did our makahiki. We carried the akua loa from Mokapu. It started to Ulupohea through Waimanalo, around to the palace, to these significant contemporary areas, through Nanakuli, Waianae, to Kaena. So that's sort of our assertion of who we are. We're not a dead people, and we teach. My idea is to also, the purpose of our farm is a learning farm. And we thought, why is it Hanekahau Learning Farm? Why are we a farm? Well, we're growing plants, but we also hope to grow people in terms of our consciousness. So everything about this farm is really our thesis, the idea is about practice, cultural practice. So we're not growing kalo or we don't plan to grow crops for commercial, where everything is going to support our cultural practice. So if we're planning makahiki, we're planning different ceremonies, we're planning different cultural practices, then what we grow supports that. Kino lao plants. We need kalo for ceremony and stuff. So that's how we want to be a little bit different is cultural practice. We're building a wood shop so we can create the implements that we need for cultural practice. We have no money. Everything's coming out of my pocket and my girlfriend Camille's pocket, but we're okay with that. Little by little, we believe in our lahui, that people will see the value of what we're doing, and it's baby steps. But good things have happened. We've had little donations here and there. We've made progress.
Yeah.
We've had Samson Trucking come out and donate services, the backhoe, topsoil for the garden. We had Akana Trucking donate, bringing us a little temporary structure where we can make a wood shop. So we're moving forward. The future looks bright, and I think the most important thing is we believe.
Yeah.
We believe, yeah.
Great.
And so, yeah.
Thank you. This is good. Do you want to say anything else?
Well, I would say, look out for us here at this stage that we're in. Hanekahau Learning Farm. We're in Waiawa, Makai. This is Kamehameha School's land. We've been fortunate to get a Kamehameha School's lease. In the process of getting a lease, but access to the land where we can sort of do Hawaiian things. Create space for Hawaiians to do Hawaiian things and to share and spread Hawaiian values and Hawaiian culture. We're cleaning up the land. A lot of illegal dumping, a lot of environmental, bad stuff, poor stewardship. Yeah. So we're working with Kamehameha Schools to clean up the land, get out the rubbish. We've taken out tons of trash metal, 16 dump trucks of concrete. We're reclaiming, we're restoring, revitalizing, and hopefully we're kind of, remaking ourselves too in the process. Yeah. As we heal the land in turn, hopefully part of us will be healed also. Yeah. As we seek to, return to our, a different identity, a different understanding of who we are based on who we were. So we could always use support. We're just setting up a blog, hanekahau.org. Check it out. We're going to be posting stuff. Hanekahau.org will be our link to our lahui. Mahalo.